This is one of my very early attempts at drawing. It's 1973. It was long before I started illustrating children's books. And I was trying to teach myself to draw. And this was my room, the room where I lived in Clapham in London, in a road called Elms Road. It's 1973 or 74. I'd just come back from the North America, Canada and Mexico and America. I'd been hitchhiking around there, and I'd come back to study electrophysiology at Bart's Hospital. But my first love was always illustration, and I just wanted to find out how to do it. So this was my room. This isn't exactly my room, except of course I guess this is the early phase of wanting to be a children's book illustrator. It seemed incredibly boring once I'd finished drawing it, so I drew a little character, a little fluffy sort of stuffed toy in the bed. But this is my room in every detail. And I was trying to learn how to use a rotring pen, which is, I think they still do them, but basically it delivers black ink through a very, very fine tubular nib, so that you can get down to, I think this was a 0.3 nib, so very, very fine. But my drawing is very crude here, but it's interesting for me to go and look back because I was already starting to understand some of the techniques with cross-hatching, where you use the cross-hatching to essentially, if you have a look here, on the cross-hatching on the window here, I would follow the perspective of the window, and it helped. See, the lines down the bottom here are more towards the horizontal, and they get steeper as you go up. And then to do vertical, to try to, and again here on the side wall you can see that I've followed the kind of contours. It gets very messy up there, look, gosh. But as I say, it was a very, very early study as I learnt to use it. My heroes were people like Arthur Rackham and E.H. Shepard, so I would pore over their work and kind of try to figure out how they did it. This is interesting for me for two reasons. One is it's a room I lived in every day, and that's all my stuff in it, right down to the little table lamp. It's very 1970s, isn't it? Look at that dreadful wallpaper. Even got some of my own pictures up on the wall there that I drew. But yeah, it just shows you it's very, very crude, but it does show you some of the basic techniques of doing pencil work and colour wash. What I found with this, I was using a card that wasn't very successful. It sort of scratched a bit and broke the surface with the pen. And then once the pen had broken the surface, when you put watercolour on it, the watercolour would kind of leach into those broken fibres of the paper. So it's around this era that I discovered a card called Bristol board, which they still make, which has enough grain on the paper to take coloured pencil, but it's smooth enough to take black ink. And so it was after doing this image and others like it that I learned to reverse my technique. So what I would do is I would draw in light pencil first, then I would go over the light pencil with coloured pencils instead of using watercolour. And the Bristol board allowed enough of the pencil to be grabbed, by the paper. And then over the top of that, I would then apply the ink. So I did the ink last, whereas in this one, when I was still practicing and learning, I had done the ink first and then applied the wash afterwards. And it was a lesson learned. It didn't kind of work for me, but it's still a lovely nostalgic picture for me.